Captain Jake Morrison walked slowly across the bridge of Terra's Pride. His boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. The ship was quiet now, too quiet. In 12 hours, every human in Council space would be gone. He looked at the big screen, showing the Council station. The massive structure floated in space like a metal city. 300 years ago, humans had helped build it. Now they were leaving it behind forever. "Captain, the last transport ships are loading now," said Lieutenant Amy Walsh. She stood at her control station, fingers moving over buttons and switches. Her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the sadness underneath. Jake nodded. "How many people are left to move?" "About 2,000. They should be done in 6 hours. 6 hours. Then humanity would be gone from this place, gone from the Galactic Council, gone from the politics and meetings and endless talk that never seemed to help anyone. Jake thought about the meeting 3 weeks ago. The one that had changed everything. Ambassador Linda Carter had been sitting at the human table in the council chamber. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had served humanity for 20 years in that room. 20 years of trying to make the other species listen. The Zephyrians sat at their golden table, looking down at everyone else. They were tall and proud, with blue skin and 4 arms. They thought they were better than everyone because their empire was old. The Nexari were at their silver table. They looked like giant insects with green shells. They were smart and good, with numbers, but they were cold. Everything was just business to them. The Veltar had the biggest table. They were the oldest species in the council. They looked like huge octopuses with gray skin. Their leader, Chairman Korthak, had been in charge for 50 years that day. The council was talking about the border wars. Pirates were attacking trade ships. Colonies were being raided. People were dying. Linda had stood up. "The human fleet can stop these attacks," she said. "But we need permission to patrol the outer sectors." Chairman Korthak's tentacles had moved in what humans knew was dismissal. "The humans are too aggressive. We cannot allow your military to operate freely." "Then what do you suggest?" Linda asked. "More talks," said the Zephyrian representative. "More meetings, more committees." Linda had looked around the room. The same faces, the same answers, the same refusal to act while people died. "How many more committees do we need while colonies burn?" she asked. "The human representative will not speak out of turn," Chairman Korthak said. His voice was cold. That was when Jake knew it was over. Linda Carter was not just any human. She was their best diplomat. If they would not listen to her, they would not listen to anyone. Now Jake watched the transport ships through his window. Small craft moved back and forth like busy insects. Each one carried humans away from the council station, away from the jobs they had done for decades, away from the lives they had built. "Sir," said Chief Engineer Rick Harrison. He was a big man with strong hands. He had maintained the station's power systems for 15 years. "All human technology has been removed or disabled. They won't be able to access our systems anymore." Jake almost smiled. The other species did not know how much they depended on human technology. The station's main computers used human programming. The transportation systems used human designs. Even the air recycling system had been improved by human engineers. "What about the communication networks?" Jake asked. "Completely shut down," Rick said. "All our satellites, all our relay stations, everything. They'll have to build their own network from scratch." Lieutenant Walsh looked up from her station. "Captain, I'm getting messages from the other species. They want to know why we're leaving." "Any response?" Jake asked. "No, sir. Orders are to maintain communication silence." Jake nodded. That was the plan. Leave without explanation. Let them figure it out themselves. The plan had been discussed for months in secret meetings on Earth. President Lisa Thompson had called together the best minds in human government. Military leaders, diplomats, scientists, economists. They had all reached the same conclusion. The Galactic Council was broken. It could not make decisions. It could not solve problems. It treated humans like useful servants instead of equal partners. "We Gave them 3 centuries, President Thompson had said. We built their stations. We maintained their peace. We solved their problems. And how do they thank us? They treat us like children who should be grateful for their attention. The decision was unanimous. Humanity would withdraw completely, not just from the Council, but from all contact with these species. They would find out what the galaxy was like without human help. Jake remembered his own frustration over the years. How many times had human solutions been ignored? How many times had they been told to wait, to be patient, to let the older species handle things? The border raids were just the latest example. Human ships could stop the pirates in a month. Human tactics had worked in dozens of similar situations. But the Council preferred endless meetings to quick action. Captain, said Amy Walsh, I'm reading something strange. Zephyrian ships are powering up their weapons. Jake looked at the screen. 3 Zephyrian warships hung near the station. Their weapon systems were active. Are they targeting us? Jake asked. No, sir. It looks like they're just showing off. Maybe trying to intimidate us into staying. Jake almost laughed. Zephyrian still did not understand. This was not about fear. This was about respect, something they had never given humanity. Ignore them, Jake said. Continue loading operations. Hours passed. More ships left the station. The human sections grew empty and dark. Offices where diplomats had worked for decades stood vacant. Laboratories where scientists had made breakthrough discoveries were cleared out. Jake walked through the human quarters one last time. These had been home to thousands of people. Families had lived here. Children had been born here. Now it was just empty rooms and closed doors. He stopped at Linda Carter's office. She was packing the last of her personal items into a small box. Photos of her family. A coffee mug from Earth. A small statue given to her by a grateful colony. Any regrets? Jake asked. Linda looked up. Her eyes were tired, but determined. About leaving? No, about what we're leaving behind, yes. You think they'll figure it out? Eventually. When their food shipments stop arriving on time. When their computer systems start failing. When the pirates reach their core worlds. Linda closed the box, but it might be too late by then. Jake helped her carry the box to the transport bay. The place was busy with the last groups of humans preparing to leave. Families with children. Old people who had spent their whole lives. In Council space, young people who had never seen Earth. Where will we go? Asked the child, holding her mother's hand. Home, her mother said. We're going home. But Jake knew it was more than that. They were not just going home. They were starting over, building something new. Something better than what they were leaving behind. The last transport ship loaded its passengers. Jake took one final look around the bay where he had arrived 30 years ago as a young officer. He had believed then that they could make a difference, that they could help build a better galaxy. Maybe they still could, just not here. Not with these people who saw them as servants instead of partners. Jake boarded Terra's Pride and gave the order to depart. The human fleet moved away from the Council station in perfect formation, no fanfare, no speeches. No goodbyes. Behind them, the station's lights flickered as human-maintained systems began to fail. In the morning, the other species would wake up to find humanity gone, really gone. Not just from the station, but from their lives completely. The silence would be their message. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. Chairman Korthek's tentacles twisted with anger as he floated into the council chamber. 3 months had passed since the humans left. 3 months of growing problems that no one seemed able to fix. The great chamber looked different now. Empty. Seats marked where human representatives had once sat. The walls seemed darker without the bright colors of human artwork. Even the air felt stale because the recycling systems were not working properly. Begin the emergency session, Korthek announced. His voice echoed in the mostly empty room. Trade Minister Nexari Quinn stepped forward on his 6 legs. His green shell clicked against the floor as he moved. Behind him he carried data tablets and charts. His insect eyes showed worry. The shipping situation is getting worse every day, Quinn said. We cannot move goods between sectors. The trade routes are in chaos. Korthek's tentacles curled tighter. Explain. The humans manage 60% of our shipping coordination. They had systems we do not understand, routes we cannot trace. When they left, they took all their knowledge with them. Quinn activated a holographic display. It showed the galaxy with red lines marking trade routes. Most of the lines were broken. Or missing. Before the humans left, cargo moved smoothly between 12,000 worlds. Now we can only maintain reliable shipping to 3,000 worlds. The rest are cut off. A Veltar council member named Vorthek spoke up. Surely we can rebuild these systems ourselves. We are not children. We have tried, Quinn said. But the humans used technology we never learned. They integrated their systems with ours so completely that removing them broke everything. Korthek felt a cold feeling in his stomach. The humans had been managing their trade for decades. He had assumed they were just following orders, doing simple work that anyone could do. Military commander Zephyrian Vex stood up next. His blue skin was pale, and his forearms shook slightly. Vex was known for his courage in battle, but now he looked afraid. The military situation is worse than the trade problems, Vex said. Border incidents have increased by 400%. 400%? Korthek repeated. Human patrol ships maintained peace in 17 sectors. They responded to distress calls, they chased away pirates. They mediated disputes between colonies. Vex's voice grew quieter. We did not realize how much work they were doing. The commander activated another display. This one showed red dots marking attacks, raids, and conflicts throughout Council space. The Krellian raiders have seized 3 mining colonies in the past month. They knew the human patrols were gone. They struck immediately. Where are our own ships? Asked a Nexari representative. Spread too thin. We have 12 ships trying to do the work that 300 human vessels used to handle. Korthek stared at the display. Red dots covered regions that had been peaceful for decades. How did we not know about this? The humans never made a big show of their work, Vex explained. They patrolled quietly. They solved problems before. They became crises. We only saw the final reports, not the daily effort. Another Veltar representative, Morthik the Elder, spoke in a trembling voice. What about the medical research? Dr. Walsh was working on the plague cure. The question hung in the air like poison. Dr. Susan Walsh had been humanity's top xenobiology researcher. She had been close to finding a cure for the Veltar plague that had been killing their people for 50 years. She took all her research. When she left, admitted Science Minister Nexari Hex, we cannot even access her computer files. The human encryption is too advanced. How many of our people will die without that cure? Morthek asked. Thousands, Hex replied quietly. Maybe more. Korthek felt his anger growing, but it was mixed with something else now. Fear. For the first time in his long life, he was truly afraid. What about basic station operations? He asked. Chief Engineer Zephyrian Tal stepped forward reluctantly. Life support is failing on levels 12 through 18. The food synthesis plants are operating at 30% capacity. The water recycling system shuts down randomly. These are basic functions, Korthek said. Any engineer should be able to maintain them. The humans modified everything, Tal explained. They improved our systems over the years, but they did not share the technical details. They said it was to protect their trade secrets. Now Korthek understood. The humans had not been protecting trade secrets, they had been protecting themselves. They knew that if the other species could not function without them, they would always be needed, but instead of using that power to control the council, they had simply left. Sir, said Communications. Officer Nexari Zek. We are receiving distress calls from 17 different worlds. They are asking when human aid ships will arrive. Tell them there are no human aid ships coming, Korthek said bitterly. They do not understand. For 200 years, humans have responded to disasters, earthquakes, floods, famines, the colonies. Expect help. Korthek closed his eyes. How had they missed this? The humans had built themselves into every aspect of Council civilization, not just as workers or soldiers, but as the foundation that held everything together. Food distribution systems relied on human logistics. Communication networks used human technology. Medical advances came from human research. Even the Council's own security protocols had been designed by human experts. "Chairman," said a young Zephyrian aide, "what do we do?" For the first time in 50 years of leadership, Korthik did not have an answer. Trade Minister Quinn cleared his throat. "There is one option. We could try to contact the humans. Ask them to return." "On what terms?" asked Vex. "They left for a reason." "Perhaps we were too harsh in our judgment of them," said Morthik the Elder. "Perhaps we did not appreciate their contributions properly." Korthik remembered the last council session before the humans left. Ambassador Carter had asked for permission to stop the pirate raids. He had refused, saying humans were too aggressive. Now those same pirates were terrorizing council worlds. They wanted respect, Korthik admitted quietly. They wanted to be treated as equals, not as servants. "They were servants," protested a Nexari representative. "Young species serve older ones, that is the natural order." "Look around," Vex said. Angrily, "Does this look like natural order to you? Our civilization is falling apart." The argument that followed was loud and bitter. Some council members blamed the humans for leaving. Others blamed themselves for driving them away. A few suggested that they were better off without human interference, but the facts were clear. Without humans, the council could not function. "We need them back," Korthik finally said. "Send diplomatic missions to every known human world. Offer them whatever they want. What if they refuse to see us?" asked Quinn. "Then we keep trying." But even as he gave the order, Korthik felt doubt creeping into his mind. The humans had left without a word. No threats, no demands, no negotiations. They had simply vanished. That kind of decision did not come from anger. It came from cold calculation. The humans had planned this withdrawal carefully. They had prepared for life without the council. The question was, had the council prepared for life without the humans? Over the following days, the situation grew worse. Food shortages began on outer colonies. Communication delays increased as relay stations failed. Small conflicts erupted into larger wars without human peacekeepers to intervene. The council that had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years was discovering what 300 years of human partnership had really meant. They had not been the leaders they thought they were. They had been the face of a civilization that humans had built and maintained. Now the humans were gone, and the illusion was crumbling. Korthik spent long hours in his office staring out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the humans were building a new life. A life without the council that had taken them for granted. He wondered if they were watching the news reports from council space. If they were seeing the chaos and breakdown their departure had caused, he wondered if they cared. Most of all, he wondered if it was already too late to win them back. Ambassador Zephyrian Talvek stood on the bridge of his diplomatic ship as it approached Earth's solar system. 6 months had passed since humanity left the council. 6 months of searching empty space and finding nothing. This was his 5th attempt to contact the humans. The other missions had failed completely. Human colonies throughout the galaxy had simply vanished. Not destroyed, not abandoned. They had packed up and moved somewhere else entirely. "Sir, we are detecting something unusual," said his navigation officer. "There are objects in space that were not here before." Talvek looked at the display screen. Floating around Earth's outer planets were dozens of large metal structures. They looked like weapons platforms, but they were bigger than anything he had ever seen. "Are they targeting us?" he asked. "No, sir. But they are definitely tracking our movement. Every time we change course, they turn to follow us." Talvek felt a chill run down his spine. The humans had built these defense platforms in just 6 months. How was that possible? "Try to contact Earth directly," he ordered. His communications officer worked at her station for several minutes. Finally, she looked up with confusion on her face. "Sir, I am getting a response." But it is not coming from Earth. It is coming from one of those platforms. Put it through. The screen flickered and showed a human woman in a military uniform. She had short brown hair and cold blue eyes. Her uniform was different from the ones Council humans used to wear. This one looked more serious, more professional. "This is Colonel Betty Rogers of Earth Defense Command," she said. "State your business in this system." Talvek tried to put on his most diplomatic smile. "I am Ambassador Talvek of the Galactic Council. I request permission to land on Earth for important discussions." Colonel Rogers stared at him for a long moment. Her expression did not change. "Earth is no longer accepting diplomatic missions from Council species," she said. "Please leave the system immediately." "Wait," Talvek said quickly. "The Council needs to speak with human leadership. There are urgent matters to discuss." "The Council had 300 years to discuss urgent matters with humanity," Rogers replied. "That time has ended. You have 30 minutes to leave this system before our defense platforms consider you a threat." The screen went dark. Talvek stared at the blank display in shock. In all his years as a diplomat, no one had ever dismissed him so completely. The humans had not even listened to what he wanted to say. "Sir, should we try another approach?" asked his officer. Talvek looked at the weapon platforms surrounding them. Each one was the size of a space station. If the humans had built this many defenses around just one planet, what did their military look like now? "Set course for the edge of the system," he ordered. "We are leaving." As their ship moved away from Earth, Talvek sent a message back to the Council. The humans were not hiding in fear. They were not weak or vulnerable. They had become something else entirely. Something stronger than before. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, Nixari intelligence operative Zexahun was having his own problems. He had been tracking human movements for months, following traces of their technology and energy signatures. Every lead had gone cold. "Report," said his commander through the communication link. "The farming world of New Kansas is completely empty," Zexahun said. "But it was not destroyed. The humans took everything with them, buildings, equipment, even the soil processing plants." "What about the mining operations on Kepler Prime?" "Same thing. They stripped the entire facility and moved it somewhere else. There's nothing left but empty rock." Zexahun had investigated dozens of human settlements. All of them showed the same pattern. Careful, planned evacuation. No waste, no destruction, no clues about where they had gone. "They are not in any known star system," Zexahun reported. "Our long-range sensors cannot detect them anywhere in Council space. That is impossible. 30 billion humans cannot simply disappear." "They had ships we never saw before," Zexahun said. "During the evacuation, our observers noted transport vessels with unfamiliar designs. The humans may have developed new technology." The commander was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke again. "Keep searching. They must be somewhere." But Zexahun was beginning to doubt that. The humans had not just left the Council. They had left known space entirely. They had gone beyond the reach of anyone who might try to follow them. Back on the Council station, Chairman Korthik received reports from search missions across the galaxy. Every single one had failed. The humans were gone, and they clearly did not want to be found. "What about their trade partners?" Korthik asked. "Surely some species maintain private contact with humanity." Trade Minister Quinn shook his head. "We have contacted every known associate of the humans. They all report the same thing. All communication stopped exactly 6 months ago. No explanation, no forwarding information. Someone must know where they went. If they do, they are not telling us." Korthak's tentacles curled with frustration. The search had cost enormous resources, ships, fuel, personnel, all for nothing. "What about their home system defenses?" he asked. "Can we get past them?" Military Commander Vex looked uncomfortable. "Our analysts have studied the sensor data from Ambassador Talvek's mission. The weapon platforms around Earth are more advanced than anything in our arsenal." "More advanced how?" "Energy output is 10 times higher than our best ships. Shield technology we do not recognize. And there are hundreds of them throughout the system. Korthik felt a cold weight in his stomach. How did they build so much so quickly? They may have been preparing for this withdrawal for years, Vex admitted. Building weapons in secret. Developing new technology without telling us. The thought was terrifying. If the humans had been planning their departure for years, they had been living a lie the entire time. Pretending to be loyal council members while secretly preparing to abandon everything, or maybe they had not been planning to leave at all. Maybe they had been planning to defend themselves. "Sir," said Communications Officer Zek, "we are receiving a message from the Veltar colony on Rigel 7. They are requesting immediate assistance." "What kind of assistance?" "Medical emergency. The plague has spread to 3 more cities. They need human doctors and human medicine." Korthik closed his eyes. Dr. Susan Walsh had been working on a plague cure when she left. Now Veltar were dying by the thousands, and the only people who could help them were gone. "Tell them we are working on the problem," Korthik said, but they were not working on the problem. They did not even know where to start. "Chairman," said Science Minister Hex, "I have been studying the human facilities they left behind. I think, I understand part of their strategy." "Explain." "They did not just take their technology when they left. They made sure we could not reverse engineer it. Every computer was wiped clean. Every piece of equipment was damaged beyond repair. They left us nothing to learn from. So they knew we would try to replace them. More than that, they knew we would fail." The reality was becoming clear. The humans had not left in anger or frustration. They had left because they knew exactly what would happen next. They had calculated the Council's dependence on them and planned accordingly. "Sir," said a young aide, "what do we tell the colonies that are asking for help? They still think human aid ships are coming." Korthik looked around the chamber at the worried faces of his fellow council members. These were some of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, and they were helpless. "Tell them the truth," he said finally. "Tell them the humans are gone and they are not coming back." The silence that followed was heavy with the weight of realization. For 300 years, the Council had believed they were the leaders of galactic civilization. Now they knew the truth. They had been passengers on a ship that the humans had been flying all along. And now they were falling from the sky. 1 year after humanity left the Council, the great station that had been the center of galactic government was under attack. Weapon fire lit up the darkness of space as Zephyrion and Nexari fleets fought each other around the ancient structure. Captain Frank Morrison watched the battle from his hidden observation post 3 light years away. He was Jake's younger brother, stationed aboard the human monitoring ship Silent Watch. His job was to observe what happened to the old council and report back to Earth. "The Zephyrians are targeting the station's main power core," reported his sensor officer, Lieutenant Don Parker. "If they hit it, the whole structure will lose life support." Frank shook his head sadly. The council station had stood for 1,000 years. It had survived wars, disasters, and political upheavals. Now it was being destroyed by the very species it had tried to govern. "Why are they fighting over an empty station?" asked Ensign Carol Davis, the youngest member of his crew. "Because they both want to control what is left of the Council," Frank explained, "even though the Council is basically dead. The war had started 8 months ago. Without human peacekeepers to stop small conflicts, old rivalries between species had exploded into open warfare. The Zephyrians claimed the Nexari had attacked their trade convoys. The Nexari said the Zephyrians were stealing their territory. Both sides were probably right. "Sir, I am detecting escape pods leaving the station," Don reported. "Looks like the remaining council members are abandoning ship." Frank felt a moment of sadness for those beings. Many of them had worked for peace their entire lives. They had believed in the council system, even when it failed them. Now they were fleeing their own government. Chairman Korthak was probably in one of those escape pods. The old Veltar had tried his best to hold the council together, but it was impossible without the foundation that humans had provided. Back on Earth, President Lisa Thompson read Frank's reports in her secure office. The news was bad but not surprising. Human strategists had predicted this exact scenario when they planned the withdrawal. The Veltar plague has killed another 50,000 people this week, reported Health Minister Dr. Ron Davis. They are still begging us for medical aid. What about the food shortages on the outer colonies? Thompson asked. Getting worse. The Nexari and Zephyrians are too busy fighting to maintain supply lines. Millions of people are going hungry. Thompson felt the weight of these decisions on her shoulders. She could stop the suffering with a single order. Human aid ships could deliver food and medicine throughout the galaxy. Human peacekeepers could end the wars, but doing so would just restore the old system. The same system that had treated humanity like useful servants instead of equal partners. Any change in their attitude toward us? She asked. The latest diplomatic messages are more desperate, said Secretary of State Kevin Clark. They are offering U.S. full council membership, expanded territory, even seats on the ruling committee. Too little, too late, Thompson said. They had 300 years to offer us real partnership. They only want us back now because they need us. The truth was painful but necessary. The council species had to learn that actions had consequences. That dismissing an entire civilization would eventually cost them everything. On the ruined council station, the last emergency session was taking place in a damaged conference room. Chairman Korthek floated in his mobility chair, surrounded by the few representatives who had not fled or died in the fighting. The Zephyrian fleet will be back in 6 hours, reported what was left of their military staff. We cannot defend this position. Where can we go? Asked Trade Minister Quinn. His green shell was cracked from debris and one of his legs was injured. Nowhere, Korthek said quietly. Every major world is either under attack or cut off from supply lines. The government has collapsed. Science Minister Hex spoke up from where he was bandaging a wound. The human monitoring stations are still active. We can detect their signals throughout the galaxy. They are watching us fall apart, Quinn said bitterly. Can you blame them? Korthek asked. We treated them badly for centuries. Now they are seeing the results of our arrogance. Through the cracked windows of the conference room, they could see the approaching Zephyrian warships. The elegant spires of the station were already scarred by weapons fire. Soon the whole structure would be rubble. Should we surrender? Someone asked. To who? Korthek replied. The Zephyrians and Nexari are too busy fighting each other to accept our surrender. They do not want to govern. They just want to win. That was the final tragedy of the situation. The war had stopped being about control of the council. Now it was just about destruction and revenge, thousands of light years away on the human. Deep Space Monitoring Station Farwatch, Commander Lisa Baker was recording the final collapse. She had been a junior officer when humanity left the council. Now she was documenting the end of galactic civilization as they knew it. The Rigel sector has gone completely dark, she reported to Earth Command. No communication, no trade, no government presence. It is basically empty space now. What about the refugee ships? Asked the voice from Earth. Scattered throughout the galaxy. Most species are trying to get back to their homeworlds, but many of those worlds are under attack. 2. Lisa had been watching this collapse for months. It was like watching a giant machine break down, piece by piece. Trade routes failed, communication networks went offline, military forces scattered or turned against each other. The galaxy that humans had helped build and maintain was dissolving into chaos. Any signs that they are trying to rebuild without fighting? Earth Command asked. No, sir. Every attempt at negotiation has failed. The different species blame each other for what happened. They cannot work together anymore. That was, perhaps, the saddest part. The council species were not evil or stupid. They were just unable to cooperate without someone else doing the hard work of mediation and compromise. For 300 years, humans had been that mediating force. They had solved disputes, managed logistics, and kept the peace. The other species had gotten so used to human help that they had forgotten how to help themselves. Back on the council station, Chairman Korthek made his final broadcast to the galaxy. His voice was tired and full of regret. Citizens of the former Galactic Council, he began. I speak to you now from the ruins of our government. The great experiment in interspecies cooperation has ended. He paused, looking around at the damaged chamber where so many important decisions had been made. We have learned too late the value of those we pushed away. The humans gave us centuries of service, and we repaid them with disrespect and dismissal. Now they are gone, and we are alone with the consequences of our choices. Another pause as weapons fire flashed outside the windows. I do not know if they are listening to this message. I do not know if they care what happens to us now. But if any humans can hear these words, know that we understand our mistake. We see now what we lost when we lost you. Corthic's broadcast was cut short as the station's power failed. Within hours, the structure that had been the heart of galactic government for a millennium would be nothing but floating debris. The age of the Galactic Council was over. The age of chaos had begun, and somewhere in the darkness beyond known space, humanity was building something new, something better, something that would not make the same mistakes as what came before. The old galaxy was dying, but from its ashes, a new one was waiting to be born. 5 years after humanity left the Galactic Council, Admiral Paul Carter stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station. The massive structure floated in a distant star system that no Council species had ever visited. This was humanity's new home among the stars. Paul was Ambassador Linda Carter's son. He had grown up watching his mother struggle with Council politics. Now he was helping to build something completely different. Admiral, the morning briefing is ready, said Captain Mary Johnson, his chief of staff. She carried a datapad with reports from across human space. Paul nodded and followed her to the command center. The room was filled with officers from many different species, but the atmosphere was nothing like the old council chambers. Here, everyone worked together as equals. Report from the outer colonies? Hall asked. Excellent progress, said Commander Elena Baker, a Veltar who had joined the Human Alliance 3 years ago. She was small for her species, with gray skin, marked by intelligence and kindness. The farming worlds are producing surplus food. The mining operations are ahead of schedule. Elena had been a low-ranking translator in the old council. She was one of the few aliens who had always treated humans with respect. When the Alliance opened its doors to refugees, she had been among the first to apply. What about the refugee processing? Pohl asked. 200 new applications this week, reported Dr. Alex Wright, the Alliance's immigration director. Mostly individuals fleeing the ongoing wars in former council space. The Human Alliance had strict rules about immigration. Species wanting to join had to prove their commitment to equality and cooperation. They had to show that they understood why the old council had failed. Most importantly, they had to accept that humans were full partners, not servants or managers. Any problems with integration? Paul asked. Some cultural adjustment issues, Dr. Wright admitted. A few Zephyrian refugees still expect humans to handle all the technical work. But they are learning, Paul smiled. Learning was the key word. The Alliance was not just a place for different species to live together. It was a school where they could learn how to actually cooperate. Sir, said Communications Officer Tom Baker, we are receiving a priority message from Earth Command. Put it through. The main screen showed Admiral Jake Morrison, Paul's old mentor. Jake looked older now, with gray hair and tired eyes, but there was satisfaction in his expression. Paul. We have a situation developing in the old council territories, Jake said. Some of the surviving governments are asking for alliance assistance. What kind of assistance? Medical aid for the Veltar plague. Food shipments for starving colonies. Peacekeeping forces to stop the fighting. Paul felt the weight of the decision. The Alliance had the resources to help. Their medical technology had advanced far beyond what the old council had achieved. Their food production systems could feed billions of hungry people, but helping would mean returning to the same role they had played before. The role of problem solvers. For species that could not solve their own problems. What does the Alliance Council think? Paul asked. Jake's expression grew serious. President Thompson wants to help, but only under our conditions. Full alliance membership for any species we assist. No special treatment, no exceptions. That was the line they had drawn. Humanity would not go back to being the galaxy's caretakers. If other species wanted human help, they had to become true partners in building something better. Any takers? Paul asked. A few. The Veltar colony on New Rigel has agreed to full membership in exchange for plague treatment. They are sending diplomatic representatives next week. Paul nodded. The Veltar had always been more reasonable than the others. Their ancient culture valued wisdom and cooperation. They might actually fit well in the alliance. What about the others? The Zephyrians are still demanding that we serve as mediators in their war with the Nexari, but they refuse to accept alliance authority. The Nexari want our trade technology, but they will not share their own innovations. So they still do not understand. No, they still think they can have the benefits of human partnership without the responsibilities. Paul ended the communication and turned to his staff. These were the people who would help decide the Alliance's response to the crisis in Former. Council space, opinions? He asked. Elena Baker spoke first. My people are dying from the plague. We should help them, even if their governments are stubborn. But if we help without conditions, we are just enabling the same behavior that caused this mess, argued Captain Johnson. Dr. Wright had a different perspective. We could offer limited aid to civilians while maintaining our membership requirements. For governments, Paul considered the options. The alliance had been built on principles of equality and mutual respect. They could not abandon those principles even to save lives. We help those who are willing to join us as equals, he decided. We do not help those who want to maintain the old system. It was a hard choice, but it was the right one. The alliance could not fix the galaxy by going back to the role of universal problem solvers. Over the following months, the policy proved effective. The Veltar colonies that joined the alliance received advanced medical treatment and were soon plague-free. Their scientists shared their knowledge of long-term space travel, which helped alliance exploration efforts. A group of Nexari mining specialists joined after their government abandoned them on a distant world. They brought expertise and resource extraction that benefited everyone in the alliance, even some. Zephyrians applied for membership after their military leaders rejected alliance peace negotiations. These were mostly civilians who were tired of endless war, but the governments of the major species continued to struggle. The Zephyrian Empire split into 3 separate kingdoms, each fighting the others. The Nexari Trade Federation collapsed. When their central computer systems finally failed completely, Paul watched reports of the ongoing chaos from his office on New Geneva Station. Sometimes he felt guilty about not doing more to help. But then he remembered his mother's stories about decades of frustration with the old council. Sir, said Elena Baker, entering his office with a datapad, the latest refugee ship has arrived. 300 beings from 12 different species. Any trouble with processing? None. They all understand the alliance principles. Many of them said they had been hoping for something like this for years. Paul smiled. That was the difference between the alliance and the old council. People came here because they wanted to be part of something better, not because they needed someone to solve their problems. Elena, do you ever regret leaving the Veltar government? She thought for a moment. The old government never valued my ideas because I was not high-ranking enough. Here, my suggestions for improving refugee integration were adopted immediately. I have more influence as an Alliance citizen than I ever had as a Veltar subject. That was the key insight. The Alliance was not about humans ruling other species. It was about creating a system where good ideas could come from anyone and where every individual could contribute their best efforts. Admiral, said Tom Baker over the communication system, we are receiving a message from Earth. President Thompson wants to speak with all senior Alliance officers. Paul made his way to the main conference room, where the senior staff gathered for the president's address. Thompson appeared on the main screen, looking confident and determined. 5 years ago, we left the Galactic Council because they would not treat us as equals, she began. Today, we have built something better. The human alliance includes 47 different species, all working together as true partners. She paused to let that sink in. We have proven that cooperation is possible when it is built on respect rather than hierarchy. We have shown that diversity makes us stronger when everyone's contributions are valued. Paul looked around the room at his colleagues. Humans, Veltar, Nexari, Zephyrians, and species he had never heard of before joining the alliance. All of them working toward the same goals. The old galaxy fell apart because it was built on the assumption that some species were naturally superior to others, Thompson continued. Our galaxy is growing stronger because it is built on the truth that every intelligent being has something valuable to offer. The broadcast ended, and Paul returned to his duties. There were refugee ships to process, colonies to establish, and scientific research to coordinate. The work never ended, but it was good work. Work that built things up instead of just maintaining what already existed. As he stood on the observation deck that evening, Paul thought about the journey that had brought them here. Humanity had left the council without a word because words had failed them, but their silence had spoken louder than any speech. It had said that dignity was not negotiable. That respect could not be demanded, only earned. That true cooperation required genuine equality. The old council had fallen into ruin because it had forgotten these simple truths. The alliance was growing stronger because it was built on them. Looking out at the stars, Paul could see the lights of alliance ships moving between distant worlds, carrying supplies, transporting people, exploring new systems, building a civilization that would not make the same mistakes as the one that came before. Humanity had left without a word. But in the end, their actions had spoken for themselves.